Welcome to Pathways to Stillness. I'm Dr. Gary Irwin-Kenyon, gerontologist and Tai Chi instructor. On this show, my co-host Vicki Hogarth and I explore how the practice of stillness can transform the way we see aging, death, and loss, and how it can help us understand our lives as a story.
Gary, I'm always happy to join you on the couch. Today we're going over a topic that I think everyone can relate to, which is grief.
Yes, it's as we do often here, it's a large topic, and we'll cover an overview perhaps of some parts of it today, and probably want to continue on as we do with some of the other topics. But I think in the most general level, grief is the loss of someone or something meaningful to us. Mm-hmm. So again, it could be a career, it could be a pet. Many people say they grieve the loss of their pet more than most human beings. Mm-hmm. Or other folks. It can also be, there are different kinds of grief, but it creates, from a narrative point of view, grief creates a big, kind of a hole in your story, a big space in your story, that I think for all of us takes time for that to reconfigure, or as we're saying here, re-story, mm-hmm. to get a different story. And what we grieve doesn't necessarily totally disappear, but it becomes an inactive or differently active part of who we are. I wouldn't say inactive, because many people think that they grieve the loss of a person they loved and they live on with them for quite a long time mm-hmm. afterwards.
I think there's that it's better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all quote that comes to mind when we think of grief, and that eventually it leaves us with this beautiful souvenir, but it's getting through that part that is hard, that does have your emotions going in all different directions, can make it hard to even leave the house or feel okay for a while.
Right.
But it is a struggle to get to that better to have loved than to have never loved at all part.
Right. I think on the one extreme, you have a lot of our culture still denies loss, aging, death, suffering. We don't want to have anything to do with it. But so we try to prevent grief from happening. Even institutionally, there are a lot of workplaces that give you a day or 2 days to grieve your loss of somebody close. Then you're expected to be back at work. And that's it, finished. I've grieved. And sometimes there's some research about males who lose somebody, who sometimes try to doubt everything. And he asked them, I know I had a extended family member, tried to help him with this, and he said, I said, how are you? And he said, fine. Mm. And I said, well, you just lost. Fine. Didn't want to talk about it anymore. So on the one hand, we have a group or part of our culture that doesn't want to deal with any of it at all. And on the other hand, in our show and in some of the newer thinking, we have people like Father Richard Rohr, who wrote a book called Falling Upward. And that talks about the fact that grief, loss, suffering is the way for us to grow to more life, not to less life, but to grow, to kind of come home to our real nature. So, and in between there, because you don't want to say to somebody who's really suffering, oh, it's all okay, because it's for the better good. They'll probably have a couple of choice words to say to you. So you can't. So we're trying to get an overview of the whole picture. But when it comes down to, grief is also very personal. I think when you really get down to it, it's a unique story. Our grief story is quite unique. Mm-hmm. And then we have similar ways of grieving, and our society has certain ways of grieving, like which stories are acceptable, which stories are not. Who's allowed to be part of the grieving process. wasn't until very long ago that same-sex couples couldn't go to their original family for various reasons. So we have cultural and social ways of dealing with grief. So it goes from being unique and personal. And then another important theme is timing. Like I say, some institutions say, hey, 2 days to grieve, and then that's it, back to work. I think we all, maybe it's again a narrative timeline. Some of us grieve and move on. We talked about the phases of grieving or dying. People move on from denial to anger to bargaining to acceptance quicker, and others take much longer. And really there's no, as far as I know, there's no rule or regulation. It's a matter of personal life and experience and so on.
Sometimes it's hard to know what to do. I know I have a couple friends, and from what you were saying earlier, I'll point out that both are male friends right now who are going through pretty serious grief. And as a friend, I don't know if the right thing is to bring it up. And sometimes when, because I work with these two people, not here, so somewhere else, and not listening right now, and I'm talking about them, but I feel like sometimes maybe they want the distraction of just focusing on something else. It's also wondering as a friend to someone in a period of grief, what's the right way to be supportive too, and help them on a path of stillness, whether it's being there as a distraction or helping them actually address it. Sometimes I don't know.
Well, that's a good point, because if we're focused on narrative approaches to things here, and the narrative care for that is you really don't know how well you know them. Sometimes you story listen to their story, and they'll say something, and you can say, well, that must be hard, or it depends. You almost have to have a sense of what would work or what wouldn't work. And a lot of researchers and practitioners in this area would say a lot of times saying nothing is the best thing to do. And then if they want to talk about it, they'll start a conversation. But again, there's no quick rule about that. Sometimes someone's waiting for you to ask about it.
But I like the way we're talking about it too is, addressing the importance of it too, I think is really, really important. Not to repeat myself too much, but I know when I think about, I mentally prepare myself for the day I won't have my dog anymore, for instance, all the time. And then I struggle with how do I stay in the present moment and not worry about that yet. But the truth is, I signed up for a relationship with another being, my dog, who, in all likelihood, knowing this, you sign up for it knowing you will most likely lose them. Their life cycle is so much shorter. So I sometimes contemplate, there's a sadness to that, but there's a beauty to it too, because it really tells you, I'm signing up for this because the love part is so much more important. The loss is just a part of the package for all this relationship is going to change me in beautiful ways too. So sometimes I try to think about that when I think of grief, is that so many of us sign up for something we know will eventually end in heartbreak, but we do it because the love is important, and even the space that's left after, the memory is important too, even though sometimes it hurts.
Yeah. We kind of sign up having to accept that some change like that will occur. And then, unfortunately, even if you try to accept it in advance, when it actually happens, it may not. I remember she was a friend of mine, and she helped me get Tai Chi classes started in Fredericton many years ago. And her mother died. The mother was well into her 90s, and my friend was well into her 70s and maybe even 80. And she said, doesn't matter how old my mother was, doesn't matter how old I am, it hurts like hell.
Yeah.
And so and it can surprise you sometimes. The grief can surprise you. Like even, there's people in our town who've been passing away lately. And, some of them I don't know so well, but it doesn't really matter. They're part of the community, and I say, oh, not them too,
Yeah.
Like one person, I didn't really know him as a personal friend, but B.B. Chamberlain. He was just so well known in town, and my wife knew him from earlier in her life. But these exchanges, there's a little altar out on the point to B.B. And we're part of the, I don't know who put that there, but we're part of the group who used to bike, walk, 12 months a year, and he'd be sitting in his truck with his dog, maybe listening to the radio or reading a book. And something like that is so touching, even though I never really knew the guy that well.
He's B.B. Chamberlain, a local legend. You always say B.B. Chamberlain, and it's the most beautiful thing about living in a small town is that we really are this huge family. And so my sense of grief since coming home, it's been almost 10 years, I say this to people all the time. I cry a lot more than I ever have in life, and it's in the best way. In the best way, because I'm going to cry right now thinking about it because I'm an emotional person. But, we did lose a couple of people this year that, many, more than a couple, but even recently too, that were, quite upsetting for the whole town because we do love each other. Even when we don't spend time necessarily around the table together, the town is almost like a big family dinner table at times, and you lose someone that is part of your big family, and it is hard. We grieve as a community, and seeing when you drove by the point this year, these like impromptu almost things that happen organically from the community, leaving flowers for someone, and I know I was on the wharf yesterday and saw a nice memorial to BB there as well. That was a community effort and a service that they're doing, having people come share memories. So sometimes collectively we grieve and know that that's kind of an important part of the process, is sharing that with each other.
Right. And you're right, St. Andrews it's a community where people look at each other walking, from one place to the grocery store or wherever, but many people will actually, or just walking, and nod but look at each other, and try that in the big city, and people will be.
I have. You seem crazy.
Yep. I try it in Fredericton even, and works a bit more in Fredericton, but still not like here where people acknowledge each other.
Yeah.
It seems simple, but then they all of a sudden aren't there anymore. So there's grief. We were talking before that we came on that sometimes there are real surprises with grief, like music. I've heard other people say this, that you're driving along in your car and you hear a song, could be from 30 years ago, and you're instantly back where you were with a particular person doing a certain thing, and it's so powerful.
It touches on what you were saying too when you think of grief, a song in particular, because there's that collective universal appreciation. There's something in a song that touches a nerve, a lyric that we can all have a feeling that we relate to, and yet our personal experience, maybe where we heard that song, who we heard it with, whatever it does to us individually, we remember our own specific memories, but collectively somehow, a beautiful song that touches a nerve. You think of a song like John Lennon's like Imagine, that's been around for years and continues to touch something in people, but we all come to it with our own story.
Right, we do. Music is one of those things that doesn't function like other parts of ourselves. It makes you a real believer in our spiritual part of ourselves because it's kind of timeless. We can have dementia. As we know, people with dementia, there's even a program, Oliver Sacks I think started this, to put an iPod at that time with the person's favorite music and put it on the head of a person with Alzheimer's, even more advanced Alzheimer's, and they'll start talking, they'll start singing. It's amazing. So I think that's why music therapy is really a wonderful tool as well. And of course I would say Tai Chi, I've found, also works that way. It kind of gets behind the cognitive brain part and goes to, I guess, our being instead of our cognitive part.
And then maybe I will put on music sometimes if I feel I have to process something. And I don't know if that's, just a subconscious thing or not, but sometimes if I feel I have to, I'm maybe burying a grief or something that I don't want to think about. Sometimes music will unearth it for me and bring it to the surface.
Yeah, that's the music, or I would say part of what we might want to consider here is that we can bring our stillness practice to our grief. I think when we first start grieving something important, more meaningful, maybe there's nothing. A lot of people, you're just kind of. My sister once said to me, she said, when her husband died, she said, "You lose your story. You temporarily lose you don't know where you are." And so grief can be just having to be with it.
Right.
I wouldn't even say accept it. It's just to survive, to be with it. In the first part of my book, I talk about a personal experience about that, where I just didn't have a clue what I was doing, where I was going. Did I want to work? Did I want to run away? Where would I run away? And then I got a phone call from one of my karate teachers in Toronto, and I had no idea he knew where I was. And he said, "Oh yeah, you're grieving this." He said, "I've been through this, and all you can do at first is survive.
Yeah.
1 minute at a time, 10 minutes, an hour, one day, and gradually it will go in a good," we didn't even say it'll be fine or great, or you'll have new life,
Yep.
That isn't what you say. But because I respected his views, and I could tell, I could feel, it's not just somebody says I've been through it, but I could feel that he'd been through something. It really did help me to tentatively say, okay, try to let more stillness into my life, or carry on.
Yeah. And how do we do that? I mean, sometimes there's grief that is really just sadness because it's a loss of love. Sometimes there's grief. I think anyone who's ever been cheated on knows there can be grief with a lot of anger. You have to emotionally accept that, maybe this is the end of a relationship you cherished. But
Right.
yeah, it's sometimes hard to confront that grief with a desire to even get through it.
Yeah, and you're right. So certain situations that provoke or bring up anger and frustration. That's very true. There are also different types of situations with, like for example, these are kind of researchers talking, or practitioners. We talk about something called anticipatory grief. So that's about when the person is not really gone, say you have advanced Alzheimer's, but you're anticipating that they will be gone. And of course we can talk about any of these to great length, because with anticipatory grief, the person that was there is not there anymore, but there's still a person there. So you're grieving, you're looking at the person you've always known, but you're grieving the loss, but they're not really gone yet. So that can be...
It could be even harder.
That can be difficult to do. And of course with grief, sometimes we can deal with it on our own or with friends, but other times, if things are not moving in a nice direction, a more healthy direction, then we may need professional help as well. I don't think we should ever be shy to look for professional help in situations like that. Because if you're with a good counselor, they will talk to you, and you'll get it, that they know what they're talking about. That's one type of anticipatory grief with that. And another one is called ambivalent grief. And that has to do with, say, a divorced couple, and the ex-partner dies, and the person still has feelings for that person, even though they haven't been with them perhaps for a very long time. It's amazing how powerful those feelings come back, and they'll be feeling ambivalent about, I shouldn't be feeling this, I hate the bugger, but...
Still an end of a time in your life, it marks the end of a loss of something that maybe, if you reflect on the past, maybe it ended badly, but there were some good memories there too, part of your story.
Yeah, yeah.
As we go into the topic of grief, it's really just the top of the topic really today that we're getting into, even just the different types of grief. How do you, as an expert on stillness, what's the first approach to accepting grief and working your way through it, regardless of which type of grief maybe you have?
Well, I think you, of course, obvious with what I talk about here, that even reading, I've had many readers say, just reading this book, parts of this book, has been very helpful to them. A couple of folks said they have it on their night table, and they read it and helps them go to sleep, which is good. Not boring, but helps them go to sleep. But if you have any practice at all, even these movements that we talk about in the show and in this book, just anything that helps bring you to the present moment gives you some solace. Perhaps you're a religious person, perhaps you have a friend that you can, somebody that will listen to you. It doesn't matter what you say, they'll listen to you. That can be very helpful. And just trying to sit with it, as hard as that might be, even if it's for a couple of minutes, just to sit by yourself and be with it. Mm-hmm. And gradually that can come easier too.
I do recommend if you live near a wharf. I love a wharf. I love to sit at the end of the wharf. It's quiet, somewhere by a beach where you can be alone. And you're right, your book it's Pathways to Stillness. I think most people who follow the show probably know it already, but available on Indigo Chapters, Amazon, or locally in stores like McGuire Chocolate. And you can really pick up any chapter of your book, and it's a beautiful exercise in stillness. It keeps you in a I'm the type of person that when I'm lying in bed, that's when questions about the meaning of life come up to me. What happens when I die? Or thinking about loss or grief. You can bury it during the day with busyness, but sometimes that's when your brain's asking you to make sense of it, right when you're trying to sleep. And so your book is very, very helpful that way, and one I love to return to. And it's such a joy to have you in our community too, to be able to talk one-on-one. I always joke this is my free therapy, but I think it might actually be. As we get to the end of today's show, and maybe we'll carry on with grief again in the next episode.
Yeah.
What's a Tai Chi move, particularly when I think addressing grief and trying to get to a place of stillness, that you would recommend as a way to end the show today?
Well, any of the moves are good, but I thought we would do the wave hands like clouds again. And so, with the palms turned out, and relax the shoulders, just palms up to about shoulder height, turn over, and float back down. And as you come down, before you lock your elbow, cross palms up and float up. And I thought, yeah, that's it. And I thought what we could focus on today is the movement. Once you're comfortable with the movement, try to picture, we'll just do this one more time. We usually breathe on the first one and the fourth one. Nice breath down to the side. So once you've got a feeling, we'll try it again. Once we've got a feeling for the move, try and you're up here and down. When you get down, cross. Try to picture your arms floating up as if you're not doing anything. Just imagine that you don't have to use your muscles. Cross, palms up, float up. It sounds paradoxical, but just try and take your muscle power out of it and feel like your arms are just floating right up. And this is the fourth one, a nice breath. And down to the side. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I feel like it's definitely a topic that we will continue discussing, and one that I'm sure viewers at home will follow along with as well. Any exercise you want to leave them with this week, or our viewers?
I think if the viewers would like to write in something about grief, we've covered a wide ground here, anything in there or something else if they would like to share something, I think that would be great. That would help our conversation continue.
Definitely, and I think that's been, I'm always pleasantly surprised by how much the viewers are willing to share about their lives, or that they want to share with us to connect with other people at home. So it's been a really special experience getting to make the show interactive as well. So I will put a notice up on my Facebook page that we are looking for people's input on the topic of grief for next episode, and I look forward to talking with you more and bringing those insights to the show.
Yeah, thanks, Vicki. It's an important topic, I think, for all us human beings. So thank you for being here, and thank you, everybody. Look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Pathways to Stillness.